Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for visiting the YouTube channel for bestbiblecommentaries.com. It's Theology Thursday, and in this case, it's more like Biblical Studies Thursday. And in this video, I'm going to show you a new release called The Prophets of Israel, and I'm going to compare it to one of the best reviewed books on this subject called The Message of the Prophets. Before I do that, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and feel free to leave a comment or ask a question down below. So the new release is called The Prophets of Israel, Walking the Ancient Paths by Kriegel Publications. The author is James K. Hoffmeyer. If you're not familiar with James Hoffmeyer, he is Emeritus Professor of Old Testament and Near Eastern Archaeology at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. He taught Old Testament and Hebrew for more than 40 years, especially focusing on Hebrew exegesis in the prophetic books. He has done archaeological work in Sinai and the Karnak Temple complex. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I think it's the Karnak Temple complex in Egypt. And presently he is part of a team investigating the Cushite cemetery at Nuri, Sudan. He has also He has also written The Archaeology of the Bible. This is a brand new release from Kriegel, and the quality of this book is outstanding. It's really an incredible resource. Because Hoffmeyer teaches at Trinity, I imagine the target audience is undergraduates, perhaps seminary students, but I think lay people would do just fine with this. So I personally wouldn't hesitate to assign this to an undergraduate class. I think they would do fine with it. I think lay people would do fine with it because of how well it's written and because of all of the illustrations and charts and photographs. Anytime you're, reading a subject like this and you have pictures that help you imagine or help you understand what's being discussed in the content of the book, it's so helpful. And with Hoffmeyer's background in archaeology, I think he even took some of these pictures as well that are in the book. It just makes for an incredible resource. But just the book itself, it's just really high quality. It's just an excellent resource. So one of the best reviewed books on this subject is this one called The Message of the Prophets. And it's similar because it's similar target audience, undergraduate level most likely. I've assigned others in this series at the undergraduate level, and it went really, really well. Probably upper division undergraduate level, but still undergraduate level. So this is a Zondervan publication. This particular volume's by Daniel Hayes. Tremper Logman is the editor of this series, but Tremper Logman actually writes a blurb for this book as well. So that's a good name to have associated with your publication. It's also similar in that there's a lot of illustrations in this book, and it's pretty high quality pictures, full color pictures and everything. So really great resource. So one of the biggest differences between these books, though, is how they teach about the prophets. And when I taught Old Testament prophets, I've taught a class previously called prophetic literature, and I had to think through, now what's my approach going to be? Am I going to take a canonical approach, or am I going to take a chronological approach? And so that's actually one of the main differences in these books. Hoffmeyer takes a chronological approach. He goes basically century by century, and then Hayes takes a canonical approach. So he starts with he starts with Isaiah and ends with Malachi. So, and Hoffmeyer is different. They each include some chapters though on, it's kind of, I guess you would say, introductory material, literature of the prophets, history of the prophets, prophets in biblical eschatology. So that there's those chapters in that book. This one, I like that there is a chapter at the beginning about the non-writing prophets. There's probably a better name for them than that, but that's all I can think of at the moment. Prophets in the Old Testament who left no writing. So, of course, there were many prophets in the Old Testament who didn't write anything down, but they held the office of prophet. So that's a fascinating chapter to me. Another one that I like in this one is prophets and prophecy in the New Testament. So not just prophecy. So what Hayes does, and this is helpful too, but he'll talk about Old Testament prophets in relation to biblical eschatology. So you can make parallels there with New Testament books. This chapter is a little bit different because it's talking about prophets in the New Testament and talks about John the Baptist and Simeon, Anna, Christ, and I think he talks about prophets in kind of in the early church. I was going to say Acts, but just prophets in the early church. So, and then John, here's a section on John in the book of Revelation. So there's a picture of Patmos there, taken by the author. So that's really neat. This is just a really great resource. So both of these are really great resources, and it kind of just depends. If you're teaching, I think it might depend on what kind of approach that you want to take with your class. And that might depend on your students or your teaching style. But there's a chronological approach and there's a canonical approach. Maybe at the end of the day, just utilizing both resources could be helpful as well. So I hope this video has been helpful. Thank you for watching it, and I'll see you next time.